we all experience in some way, whether it's a trip we remember with our family, doing well in school, but in my case, and I'm sure many of you, if you're watching this video, is through video games. I grew up playing them. I still love them today, even at the age of 36. And I wanted to talk about some of my favorite childhood games that I remember growing up. And you can leave yours down in the comments below and maybe like the video while you're there. I'd like to start off with what I think is a lot of people's first video game, or at least their first video game franchise, and that would be Mario Brothers. Mario Brothers came out around the time that I was a very wee child, just a little baby, but I remember that my dad played it a lot when I was a kid. And I remember he would put me in this like metal swing thing, torture device that had a crank on it, and he would sit there and he would just crank the hell out of it and just let it go as long as it could, so that way I would just swing and watch him play Legend of Zelda, and most importantly, Mario Brothers. So I watched my dad play the original Mario Brothers, but I never actually played it myself. But I do remember playing Super Mario World. That was my first real Mario Brothers experience, and I just remember how much fun I had playing that, but I could never really get that far. But there's one core nostalgic memory that I have with that game, and that's when I was maybe 4 or 5. I remember I was sleeping in my bed, and I woke up to my dad peeking around the door, and he was like, "Hey, bud, I'm about to beat Super Mario World. Do you want to come watch me play?" And I got up so excited and I ran downstairs, and there he was, Bowser, the last fight. And I remember watching with excitement as he beat Super Mario World. And it was so cool, and I had so much fun, and it created that core nostalgic memory for me of him beating Bowser. Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario World were just the beginning for me, though. Here are some more nostalgic games that I enjoyed. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention a genre of game that I played a lot growing up, again, thanks to my father. Again, he got me into just video games in general. That would be the point and click adventure style game, mostly Sierra and LucasArts. Games like Legend of Corandia, Monkey Island, Day of the Tentacle, Sam and Max, these are all point and click adventure games that I found so much fun, so funny. They all had just perfect humor for the day. Kids might not get it today, but for me, I would cry with laughter watching some of these games and playing them, watching my dad play them, playing them myself. I just couldn't get enough of these, and I still go back to this day and blow through Day of the Tentacle, Monkey Island, Legend of Corandia. I play all of those still to this day just to get a little bit of nostalgia of remembering sitting in my parents' bedroom where they had the computer when I was a kid, playing through those games with my dad, just laughing hysterically. So I think one of the worst gaming decisions ever made in my life was when my dad said, "Hey, I know we have the Super Nintendo, but what do you think about trading in the Super Nintendo for a Sega Genesis? It does what Nintendo don't." And as a kid, I didn't know any better. And I said, "Yes, trade the Super Nintendo, get us a Sega Genesis. It'll be so much better." And it was. As a kid, you don't really know the difference. As an adult, I feel like I miss so much not having a Super Nintendo. But there's one game that I remember. It was the first game I got on Sega Genesis that I just played nonstop. It was one of the first video games I ever remember finishing from start to finish, and that is Sonic the Hedgehog 2. I just love this game. It was so much more fast paced than anything I'd played. You were just zooming through the levels, and it was so much fun. And again, I actually beat it, which was surprising to me as a kid. I'd never beaten a video game before, but I beat this one. And I remember as a kid, one of my best friends at the time, we were over at his house. He also had a Sega Genesis, and his mom came to me while he was in the bathroom or something and said, "Hey, can you help him beat the Chemical Zone? You know, the second level of Sonic 2? He couldn't beat it because of the water. He would always drown in the chemical stuff." So I helped him beat it. We continued to play, and I showed him how to beat Sonic the Hedgehog 2. He was so amazed, and it's just one of those core memories I can't forget. Now let's kick it back to Nintendo. I was smart enough. I didn't stay on the Sega train for long. I went back to Nintendo with the N64, and I actually still have my N64. I also have a ton of N64 games, including one of my favorites, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. This game blew my mind as a child. I had never played anything like it. It was so expansive. There was so much you could do, and I just remember playing it nonstop. And it took me probably a year to beat Ocarina of Time. Now you can watch some speedrunner do it in like 18 minutes, and it's amazing. But for me, beating it after a year, I remember running down to my dad and going, "I beat it. I beat Ocarina of Time," and he was so impressed. He had never played that. And that was around the time where my dad was getting to where he's like, "I can't, the games are too high tech. They're making me sick to watch them." I remember playing GoldenEye with him and him being like, "I just can't. It just makes me sick looking at all this, the way the camera moves and stuff." That's how much graphics had been updated in the time. It went from 2D to 3D. But Ocarina of Time, I mean, what else is there to say about it? It's an instant classic. It's a masterpiece. Everything about it is great. There's nothing wrong with it as far as I can tell. There's no downgrade over the years. Like, I can still go back and play Ocarina of Time and just be amazed and enthralled while playing it, except for the Water Temple. Fuck the Water Temple. In this same time, there was another game that came out that me and every other child around my age was obsessed with, and that was called Pokemon. That's right, I was around when Pokemon first started, at least in America. I know it came out in Japan first, doesn't matter. In America, I was there for the beginning of the craze. The game, the cartoon, the cards, everything was Pokemon at the time, and I loved it. I started with Pokemon Blue, and then I kind of faded off. I got a little too old, or at least I thought I did, and then didn't play Pokemon for a while, and then later on in the, I played Pokemon X and Y, and I played Sword and Shield, but I just remember that first Pokemon game, playing Pokemon Blue, and just being enthralled, just amazed, learning all the tricks you could do and all the fun builds you could have with your teams, and learning about the pushing the truck to get the Mew, which was not true at the time. But hey, we talked about it. That was the time of like grade school rumors when you go to school and kids would be like, oh yeah, I saw that if you push the truck next to the SSN, you can get Mew, or like if you do this. Now, the one thing that did work was missing no, which was a very cool trick. And if you knew how to do that as a kid, you were pretty cool. But if you remember Pokemon, you also remember the link cable, so you could trade and fight with your friends. I used to trade to get the Gengar and the Machamp. Oh my God, why am I saying it like that? Gengar and Machamp. But again, Pokemon is just, to this day, it's still a global phenomenon, and I don't know if it's ever going away. I don't think it ever will. But I was there from the beginning, and I'll never forget the way I felt playing Pokemon Blue for the hours upon hours that I did. All right, so I know that I said I went to Nintendo and kind of left Sega behind, but that's untrue in the sense that later on in the year 1999, when I was a spry 12-year-old, the Dreamcast came out. To this day, one of my favorite consoles of all time, and I hate that it was the final one for Sega, but I have so many fond memories with the Dreamcast, and one game in particular, Shenmue. Shenmue was a genre breaker. It did so many things that had not been done in video games. It hasn't aged as well. I've been playing it on my channel recently, and I've realized that it didn't age as well, but to 12-year-old me, it was the greatest game of all time. You could run anywhere. You could buy capsule toys. You could play arcade games. You got into karate fights. It was just so cool. Of course, now you look back, half the people say they're busy, they don't do anything, half the stores don't open. You realize there's some issues, but I just did not care at the time. I was so excited. I would play Shenmue for hours, just farting around, just doing whatever I could, buying capsule toys, driving the forklift, getting a paycheck, which nowadays I'm like, I miss that. That's the nostalgic feeling. I'm glad I didn't have to work for a paycheck back then. Shenmue wanted me to get a paycheck by driving a forklift around a dock. It was so cool. It's also probably part of the reason that I enjoy Japanese culture so much. I got in early with Shenmue. Something about the 80s in Japan just seemed so cool. All right, I'm going to finish this list off with probably my favorite game of all time, and I know it's very cliche when I say it because lots of people say this is their favorite game of all time, but this game changed me when it came to gaming. It made me understand what a game could be and what some games just have never really met up to in my years of growing up. And that is Final Fantasy VII. That's right, the most stereotypical answer of what's your favorite game or what's your favorite RPG, it's Final Fantasy VII. I play this at least once a year, maybe every 2 years, I will play through Final Fantasy VII. I never get tired of it. It was my first RPG. It was my first time learning how to build characters and using the materia system and learning all the secrets and all the side quests and going like, I've never played a game this in depth. The story was cool. The bosses were cool. The characters were cool. I mean, you're a guy carrying a giant sword. Like, look at me. I'm Cloud Strife. I'm cool as hell. And I just can't get over this game. I went on my honeymoon recently, and I have one of those emulator devices, and all I did whenever I had a chance to play it on the plane or when we were just kind of hanging out was I was playing Final Fantasy VII again. Have I played through it 12 times? Yes. Do I want to continue playing it every chance I get? Yes. It is an incredible game. I enjoy the remake. I'm excited for the second part of the remake, but The original just holds a special place in my heart. I even still have the strategy guide from when we had it. We did play the PC version. Don't hate me. We played the PC version from IDOS, but I used to read this book like just a regular read. I would just look through it all the time, even if it was spoiling a game. I was so excited to read this book. That's why I've held on to it, because it has such special memories for me. My dad played it. I watched him play it. I played it myself. I did everything. I did the chocobo racing. I did the weapons. I did all the ultimate weapons, ultimate limit breaks. I did it all because I was like, I want everything. Nowadays, that's not so much the case. I'm a little more impatient with the game, but back then I wanted everything, and this book helped me get there. So Final Fantasy VII is probably my most core nostalgic video game of them all. So that's just a few of the games that I grew up playing as a child that have nostalgic meaning behind them that I go back to and they make me feel like a kid again. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what your favorite nostalgic games from your childhood are down below. I really appreciate it. Like the video, subscribe. There's more green screen videos here, somewhere that I'll put them maybe over here that you can go watch where I do these green screen videos. And there's plenty more to come. And if you like gaming videos, I do those every day. So check those out as well. Thanks for watching. I love you. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.